All right, all right. We are back at the Grit Won't Quit, a podcast studio. We're in Belmont, New Jersey. We have a very special out of town guest today. We have Barbara from Atlantic Limo of Charleston. Barbara, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here.
You have a story of grit, and you're in the limo business, which is a tough
Uh-huh.
business in of itself, and it's kind of a male dominated industry. And you're out there
Yeah.
hustling and getting people in your car. So, kind of tell us about your business, and then we can start and go into the grit of your life.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, I'm down here in Charleston, South Carolina. And like I said, I have a limo business. And I mean, it is. It's a male dominated industry. It's the boys club. But I love it, and I don't see, I've been, climbing my way to to being profitable and meeting people, figuring it out as I go. I definitely tend to just make a decision without looking at all the facts. Like, I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went on a gut feeling. And
What made you decide that the limo business was for you?
well, my mom had, like, I don't know, 12 years ago, she decided that she was gonna, she drove for like Yellow Cab, and she decided that, after, like, 30 years in the hospitality industry, and she decided that she was gonna, try do it herself, and just, more personal and nicer cars. She's did a real, like a real mom and pop, and I I came back into the scene in Charleston a few years ago, and I'm not a good employee. I hate
I could
working for
imagine. I,
people.
I would, I would, I would, I could validate that.
Yeah, like
Knowing you, I could see that.
I hate working for people. And as I've gotten older and longer I've gone in life doing that, I grow more and more miserable. To not wanting to get through the shift, become angry and resentful. So I really enjoyed uh I really enjoyed just working for myself, my own schedule, and getting to be who I want to be,
Hmm.
around people. And, like, what one of my strengths, is like interpersonal relationships. And so I didn't have to hide that, and I got to, like, just be myself. And
Yeah,
it
I
wasn't.
could, I could see that you're great in the car. If you're driving
Yeah.
or setting up a reservation, I can see that you make the people feel warm and fuzzy, and they want to do business
Yeah.
with you, and you have that kind of
Yeah, and,
personality.
and that's one of the things that, like, I think attracts people, and helps me build relationships. Is, I truly, in my heart, I truly enjoy getting to know people, and just being able to, like, be of service to them. And even if that just starts with, like, a really warm and friendly conversation that makes them feel comfortable, and
Hmm.
it's more of, friendship, or like it's a familiar interaction rather than cut and dry transactional, process. So I have a good time. I'm having the time of my life. It's not easy. Some day, there's good months, there's bad months, there's good seasons, there's bad seasons. But I find that at the end of it, I get by. When it's not great, I get by. I'm given what I need. But I also found that, with you got to keep going. You know what I mean? And, like, the downtime that you get isn't. I don't look at it as, like, detrimental. I don't look at it like I'm not overwhelmed with it, because I'm using that time to create, and to create more possibilities and more opportunities, and go after them. Because when I'm busy, thank God, in a pretty short period of time, I've grown to having, two additional drivers, so that I can invest
Great.
in. Yeah, it's, I can invest in myself and in my business with my time, which is a lot more valuable for me to be behind the scenes rather than behind the wheel. So I still drive. I still, I really enjoy it, but I really enjoy much more being out, in the field, and making calls, and going and meeting people. And I've been really, I've been told by so many people that, like, this industry is pretty upset top heavy with jerks. But I've been really blessed and fortunate with meeting some incredible people who, I mean, they're some of the big guns and the top dogs, and they're calling me to ask me how I'm doing and see how they can help me, in any way. And they pick up the phone when I call them and ask for advice, and it's well received. There are a lot of people that like bust on you or just are really negative and make fun of people who don't know or like are newer operators. Yeah, I'm a newer operator, especially in Charleston. It's a boys club, and
Hmm.
there aren't any female business owners in this industry. I think there's one, but
Isn't
they're
that
not
great though
on.
that you can come in and kind of it's a boys club and you come in and you just do what you do and I think people will like
Yeah,
it.
I mean, yeah, like it's I don't really I don't look at that like that's not a driving force for me, but it is true. And I think that a lot of people are looking at like some look at me like who the hell is this person,
Yeah.
who's calling me to like, ask me to cover trips for her. Um and some people and because they're all so tight knit and they have established relationships, they are also, someone probably looking at me like, she's a nobody, but they're not gonna, I'm glad that they do that because they're not gonna see me coming, and I don't compete with anybody, you know what I mean? Like I look at it like, I mean, I'm the underdog, so
Yeah, you're competing against yourself. You got to be better than you were yesterday.
and it's like I'm given everything that I need, to my bills are paid, so sometimes I turn a profit, sometimes I don't, but it's the first 2 years in business, so um
Hardest time, and I think there's some statistic that says 50% of businesses go out within the first year, and
yeah,
65 in the first 5 years or something like that. So I mean,
yeah,
again, and the one thing and for the listeners that don't know, I am an investor in two transportation companies, so I know very much about this business. I know the struggles, I know the hustle of it, and it's a
yeah,
capital intense business. It's a very hard insurance business. It's very expensive and
yeah,
costly in the world of insurance. So, to be a new operator is a very tough task. And, in one sense, the barriers of entry are so high. Once you're in, you have a good chance of succeeding. It's just getting through the beginning periods. And I know back at the beginning when I first started, I think some of these gray hairs came from getting involved in a transportation company that I at the time didn't know a
yeah,
bunch about. Over the years, I've learned a lot. It's a and there's, there's always a moving part going on. There's always somebody's big event that you have to make sure that you're there for.
yeah,
But I think if you have that customer service way about you, you could be very successful. And I think operators
yeah,
that is very, tough and they, too much to the book, I think that they lose that customer experience because again, in the wedding world and the nights out, people are looking to have a fun time. They're looking to rent a vehicle to enjoy themselves. So you kind of have to be kind of a go with the flow kind of person, I think, to be
yeah.
successful at that game.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, you can't expect, you've got to put the work in,
Hmm.
you can't get
Absolutely.
down. You've got to have thick skin. You have to really believe I mean, for me, I had to really believe in what I'm doing. I had to, it had to be a true desire for me. It's a labor of love. It's, personally, I mean, I get off on it. I get off on closing the deal. That's what excites me. It's the kill that I love. You know what I mean? It's fun. And I'm genuine in wanting to kind of redefine people's experiences. It's not just about meeting numbers. It's about creating relationships. It's about you know uh, getting to know people and letting people to get to know, that you're honest, that you're transparent, that that you really are passionate about helping them and being a part of the community. So it's definitely it's exciting stuff. It's tough. You can't just expect it to come to you. It's something you've got to work at and build. And it takes time. A lot of people, they do, especially I've been told, like, a lot of people quit because they think it's easy. They've driven for other companies and then they decide to get their own vehicle and they see that it's not that simple.
No.
And I think the number one mistake that Well, I mean, I'm not a veteran to say that, but the thing that I hear the most that people do, or in my experience, is people approach other operators in their market as competitors. But I see them, I mean, I see people as assets. I've been able to
Sure.
grow a really great team. If I only have a couple of vehicles, but they've got vehicles, I've got those vehicles as well. So create good relationships with folks, and they're it's like having partners without the commitment. So
Gives you
yeah,
the
man.
flexibility to be bigger without having to have the commitment of a
Or the
partner.
overhead, yeah,
Yeah.
it's without the overhead. You're still running your own operation. It's your own philosophy. It's your own, it's your own idea. Your own creation, and you get to run it the way that works for you. I mean, I like I said, I worked for other, you know, mostly, sole operators, like lawyers and property. I did property management for, like, independent, developers, and that was great. But I was always limited, and I don't like being limited. So, it took a lot to get here, but you know it took a gut feeling and a dream, and some work. I mean, I came in not knowing what the hell I was doing. I had this idea of, like, driving, like, the upper echelon of Charleston around, not realizing what it was going to take, and not realizing how expansive this industry is. And I came in with a lot of insecurity because I got sober 4.5 years ago, and before that, my life was a train wreck, and I. I ran around this town causing havoc. It was always so embarrassing, and I was so insecure about putting myself out there, but
So let's
has
talk about that for a little. So you were
yeah.
living in South Carolina,
Mm.
and you had a drinking issue. So you were causing havoc in the town, and now you're going to start becoming a business owner in the town after
Yeah, it
you
was
sobered up.
yeah, I mean, well, I've been an alcoholic, and a drug addict my whole life, uh, and it really fell apart when I moved to South Carolina. I'm from New York originally.
Where in
I
New
moved
York are
here.
you from?
Well, I mean, I lived in Brooklyn for, from, like, I don't know, 11 to 16, in Bensonhurst, West 10th to Kings Highway. I think part of not giving up and keeping going for me, and, like, I mean, it's a grind, right? Nothing comes easy, is being at the bottom, coming from rock bottom, and I mean, I'll just be, I was a heroin addict, and I was on the street, and I was, doing everything, I needed to do to survive. And when I finally got, if I got sober, and that in itself is climbing out. I realized one day, it was like, screw that. I don't know if I can curse on here.
Yeah,
I
you
curse
can.
a lot. But I was like, fuck that. Like, I didn't get sober to be miserable and, work for somebody else. Like, if I'm gonna go, like, I got rear-ended, pretty bad, and I ended up getting a decent settlement. And I prayed on it. I thought to myself, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna, am I gonna put money away into the stock market, and, like, to be safe? And, like, what's safe? I mean, I used to shoot heroin with sewer water. What's the point of, what I mean? Like, safety isn't really my concern. And it was just like, it's like, scared money doesn't make money. So I decided that, like, I was going to go for broke. I was going to invest in myself. I knew I had, what it took. And I knew that if I utilized every opportunity and every resource available to me, that there was no way I was going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So, I took that money. I bought a couple of vehicles. you know, I had a lot of hit and misses, with marketing, and this and that, and I got, jerked off a bunch of times. So, but I kept going, right, and I kept on putting, there's plenty of times where I kept on putting money into it, um, and but I stayed above water, and it's it's happening. I've got some great, like I said, I've got some great relationships.
Hmm.
I'm actually going from being a dope head to employing people, which is like,
Which
and
is
like
awesome.
sometimes sometimes I live. I got it. Okay, sorry. I got. Yeah, yeah. I
You know
know.
what though?
Cool.
That's like when you think about it and you look at not a specific period of time, but you look over a longer stretch. You went from
Yeah,
not
yeah.
being a good part of society to being to employing people, which takes it takes a special person to pay,
Yeah,
to pay somebody else every week or every time
yeah,
so it's I think that that's awesome. I think that that's really great.
yeah. And I hear, and it takes. It's not, and I'm not, patting myself on the back, but you have to recognize that there are two different types of people in this world. You know what I mean? There's like worker bees and there's like the queen bees, right?
Yep.
And I don't know any other way. This is the most, I feel, um, like I'm the closest version of my, like the closest version of myself that I was always supposed to be. And I'm having the time of my life, even on the tough days. But when I have those tough days, if I'm being completely
Be completely honest.
straightforward, it's because I'm not going to my full potential. I'm not doing everything that's available to me. I'm being lazy. I'm sitting in, you know just not wanting to like put in the effort because I'm lazy, right? I'm lazy and I just want it to come. And sometimes I'm just like, God, I've done all this, isn't this enough? But really, am I doing everything I
You got to
can?
keep pushing.
You have to keep pushing, because
It doesn't end when you're a business owner. It's different than being a employee because you got to keep
yeah,
pushing. You got to keep going.
yeah.
There's no stopping.
Yeah, it's there's if this doesn't work out, I couldn't imagine what was next. And like the worst case scenario for my entire life would be to get a job.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So if
So,
nothing else, that's the reason to make
mhm,
it work is that you don't want to work for somebody else. So that's better. That that pain is greater, so that you continue doing what you do.
yeah, and as
And in the
long as I get to
process, keep making the business better so that people want to work for you, that you want to keep pushing it, you want to take
yeah.
it to the next level. The customers are happy. There's so many benefits once you get going. And I think again, you've had a hard go at it. You make grit look easy there. So I mean, again, going from being a heroin addict to now employing people and running a successful company,
Crazy.
it's crazy. What
Yeah.
made you for the potential listener that might have some addiction issues? What made you stop doing heroin?
I mean, I lost the desire to get high way before was able to stop. And I just I finally came to a place where I couldn't keep doing, even if even if I wanted to, even if I had the desire to keep living that life, I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't have the energy. I was 39 years old, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't have it in me. I didn't have what it took to keep doing it, and I didn't have a choice.
Hmm.
So I didn't have a choice but to get sober. And I was resentful. But I was afraid, and it was the one thing that I never wanted to surrender to, was to believe that I was an alcoholic. And my heroin addiction was a direct result of being an alcoholic. Just alcohol stopped working, cocaine stopped working, all that stuff stopped working. So yeah,
Wow,
it wasn't something that like I chose. It was something that I was presented. I couldn't, I had no choice but to get sober. And it was against my will, but thank God for it. As long as I stay sober, and as long as I get to continue to get to wake up and love what I do, and from anywhere, right? Mind blowing that I get to do this job essentially from anywhere. I've got free time. I've got people, trusted people, which is really hard to find. But I have people that are incredible, that treat my clients and my business as if it was their own.
that's awesome. You can't
You
ask for
know what
better
I
than
mean?
that. in
You
a
can't
world
ask
of
for better
people
than
that
that.
don't, that not everybody cares. I mean, I think that that's fantastic that you've already
Right.
in such a short amount of time built that up, because
Yeah.
that's very hard to train people to understand, to
Yeah.
treat business like it's their own.
Well, it's also people's character. You can't teach integrity.
No.
You can't. So it's really, I think having the right team around you. You can't micromanage it. It's if people aren't doing what is just like common sense, or like it'll drive you crazy because you're going to be spending more time correcting things and damage control with clients than you are building the business and doing the things that I love to call clients afterwards and just make sure, ask them, how their trip was, how their experience was, and just give them that extra care. But what I don't want to do is call a client and, like, apologize for something or hear that it was great, but is that's
And
one
every
thing.
business owner
Luckily,
gets
I'm not.
that call or makes that call and hears
Yeah,
that feedback. Again, in both my companies, unfortunately, I've heard that over the years. And
yeah,
again, you have to try to, educate and teach people so that it doesn't happen again. Because the worst thing is you work so hard to build these customers up, and the last thing you want to do is lose one because if someone didn't care about the customers
because
that you did.
somebody else, yeah, doesn't appreciate. Listen, Charleston is such a saturated market. There's new companies and new operators popping up every week. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's okay. The way that I look at it is I'm so grateful. My clients and these people that are coming in visiting, they have a plethora of companies to choose from. There are like five really big companies here, six that dominate. When they're calling me, and I'm a small business, um
It
and
makes you
they're
feel good.
choosing, right, like, I value that, and they can use anyone else they want. My job is important to come through for them and to give them what other big companies can't give them, because they're trying to meet quotas so they can keep their vehicles on the road and can employ 30, 40 people. My drivers, I've got two, but they're top tier. They're amazing. They have the same love and character and integrity that I do, which, they're a direct reflection of what I put into the company, because I can't. I'm not interested in even surrounding myself with people that don't have the same approach that I do. It doesn't work, because then you lose, I feel I lose the philosophy and like the beliefs that the company are built that I'm building the company on. So yeah,
Awesome. This was a
yeah,
great conversation. I'm glad that we finally got you on the Grit Won't Quit podcast studio, because we've talked about getting on the podcast for a while, and
yeah,
I know that you were a little nervous at the beginning, but I'm glad you did, because
yeah,
it's interesting to hear your story. I know a bunch about what's going on, but I
yeah,
love what you do. I think you have the right mentality to be successful, and you're going to
yeah,
continue to push, and you're going to continue to hustle, and you're going to
yeah,
continue to win.
yeah. I definitely,
As we
I don't
wrap
know
up today,
when.
let people know where they can.
Yeah,
It's going to
so
keep going. You're going to keep growing.
yeah, I'm not going to fail. There's no possible way. You know what I mean? I'm not going to accept that. I'm really stubborn, and it's, yeah, I don't know, that's just not in my cards. However it goes, but it's not going to be a failure, maybe I'll decide I want to do something
No,
else in a few years, but um like I said, I'm not going to work for somebody else.
this
you
has been a
know
great learning for you.
yeah,
You've taken a business. You've learned. You've done.
yeah.
You've exceeded your
I think,
expectations. So
yeah,
keep
I
doing what
think
you're
the most
doing.
important thing is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid. I have an ego, and I hate for anybody to see that, like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I've always been so, like, insecure about that, but screw that. Like, if you want to grow and there's something you want to do, I think you have to say, be humble. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Let people know, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to learn, like, how, how did you do it? What's the first steps? And you have to follow your instincts, follow your gut, get good people around you to, like, form a team, people that you trust, people that it's like, you don't need to follow up with them, get a great marketing company, you know build, like, build your online presence, because that stuff does help, and get out into your
Mm-hmm.
community, serve your community, because that's what's going to make a difference, and that's where you're going to find your client base and trusted relationships. Be honest, don't go after the buck all the time. Go after helping people and wanting to serve. And that's my greatest advice, is be diligent,
Awesome.
take your
Thank you
time.
for that. That's great. That is great feedback. So, Barbara, as we wrap up today, let people know where they could find you online.
Yeah, so you can go to www.atlanticlimocharleston.com. Check out our website. You can Google my business, Atlantic Limo Charleston, and check out our reviews, and see a little bit about, what our services offer, which is everything from, simple airport transfers. We, go city to city, do large, specializing in micro weddings where it's, smaller budgets, smaller, guest amount, being able to work with clients and offer them, different packages. So yeah, we cover a wide range. Cater our clients, super flexible. I don't limit. I don't set limitations for people who work with people. And yeah, so just check us out. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Atlantic Limo Charleston, and that's it. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming on today. This was great. And
Thanks.
I look forward to continued success for you.
I appreciate it. Thanks. I appreciate it so much.